Yeah, it's mindset cafe, we all about that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devin, and I'm excited to welcome Kate Allgood to the episode today. She is a mental performance coach. She's a best-selling author, and she is the CEO of Quantum Performance Inc. I mean, honestly, you guys already know that the Mindset Cafe is all about your guys' personal development, your guys' journey, because it is a personal journey, but learning from other people's stories and bringing on people that are really aligned with helping. And that's something that Kate is really specialized in. She has been from a standout ice hockey player in Canada, which is so cool because, I mean, I'm in California and we don't have ice hockey like you guys do out there, but I love watching hockey. And she's, coached some of the top athletes in the NFL, the NHL, the UFC, and so many other areas. So with that being said, Kate, I just want to take the time to say again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to hop on and, give the audience some knowledge.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
So let's dive straight in. Like, where did your journey begin with, mindset?
It's a very good question. I think, without really realizing it, I think it really started when I first started playing sports. And, I was the kid that would be, out in my backyard rink growing up, taking shots, trying different moves. And I would, want to get like 10 in a row perfect, probably a little bit perfectionist in there, but, 10 in a row perfect before I could go inside. I had a, basketball hoop when I was 3 years old, learned to skate when I was 2. So I think as soon as you get into the world of sports and wanting to excel and really enjoying what you're doing, mindset obviously is naturally, goes hand in hand with it. And so I think that's truly when it started. And then, as I got further along in my hockey career, dealing with politics, dealing with, maybe overly exuberant parents, getting cut from a team, all of these things, right? They start to play a role and your mindset starts to show through whether you're aware of it or not. And I think, for me, I knew even my first time I got cut, I think I was only 7 or 8 years old. So I was pretty young, and my immediate response to it was, okay, great, let's go and let's get better and work harder. So I think that started to show what kind of mindset I had from a pretty early age.
No, that's so awesome. So I want to ask, I was the first of 3 boys, and so my parents made me do every single sport under the sun. I mean, I even did fencing, right? And their whole thing for me was like, you have to at least try it once, and if you don't like it after that, you don't have to do it. But I think that I learned so much from mindset and fitness and the demand I wanted for myself. Like you said, you were out in the backyard, and you had to make 10 shots before going in. What do you think, like, the importance of kids in sports is it important? Is it crucial for their development, or no?
I don't think it has to be sports. I think there's a lot of different things that can help develop the mindset and maybe some of these tools that are going to help you beyond these different endeavors. I think sport is definitely a great tool to use to develop yourself as a person. And before it became a multi-million-dollar industry, before people could make, a career really out of it and make lots and lots of money, that was really the whole point of sports, was to develop yourself as a person, to develop things like teamwork, communication, hard work, that you would then take with you when you went and had your career and the rest of your life. And that those would be things that you would have developed through doing sports. And obviously you could do, music, do an instrument or different things that could also probably do that, because there's still a performance element, still needing a certain mindset and learning how to develop something. But sports is just one of those great tools. And I think because there's just so many different sports, you can generally find a sport that's going to probably fit, the different people and personalities that are out there.
No, I think that it makes a lot of sense. There's the performance aspect, but learning a skill that takes time to get better at and everything is crucial. I do want to ask about your hockey career. I mean, you were one of the top ranked ice hockey players. And so did you get into any fights? I mean, I know when I watch the NHL and stuff, like that always happens. Or was that just, is that just at certain levels? How did that play any role in your career?
We didn't have huge fights, not like the NHL. That wasn't actually really allowed. Like even in men's hockey. I think at the college level, you're not allowed to get into fights like that. You are in the NHL. It's generally frowned upon, but there's definitely, some pushing and shoving and some, punches thrown with gloves on. And for us, especially, we all had masks on. So you're not going to want to drop your gloves because you probably hurt your hand in the process. But yeah, I got in a handful just because I was very good. And so you get a little extra attention, you get a push or a shove here or there. So it would take a lot. I think at most ever got maybe 12 or 14 penalty minutes in a year. So anybody who knows the game that knows that it's very, very low. So it took a lot for me to get to a point where maybe I would want to swing a punch. But definitely, I had some people on my line who would come to my defense and maybe some things would get going from there.
No, that's awesome. I mean, just as a curiosity question, and I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but when you're watching ice hockey and stuff and someone gets slammed into the glass, especially it's like someone is coming across ice and it looks like full speed, like even with the pads on, like how bad does that really hurt?
It just depends. It depends on if you know how to take a check or not, right? And if someone is coming full speed, and obviously there are rules in hockey, you can't charge someone, which is kind of, almost doing that and then like going full speed into somebody. But it definitely can hurt, especially if you get hit the wrong way or a stick gets involved. I got a few cross checks to the ribs on the occasion, so that definitely can hurt if you hit the boards in an awkward way. But generally, if you've learned how to take a check, it's not too bad. But yeah, if it's coming full across the ice and someone's slamming into you, you can, imagine like we get up pretty fast in our speed, so that's yeah, that hurts.
That's what I'm saying. It's like sometimes like some of the checks look like I'm like, dang, that I was hard. And then you watch like the player just get up like it was nothing. I was like, there is no way that didn't phase you a little bit. Because like even football, I mean, I played rugby, and obviously with no pads, it sucks when you got hit or tackled or slammed. But with football, it's like those hits still hurt, like, to a degree. It's like if you get hit the wrong way, it's like it still knocks the wind out of you. It still, can, give you a concussion even though you have a helmet on. So sometimes I'm amazed at the players and their resilience to just get up and like it was nothing. I was like, dude, you are tough. You are a tough individual. But I do want to kind of dive in from your athletic experience and stuff. What was the point where you transitioned from being a player to being a coach?
I transitioned actually right after university. So I was on track, and my goal had been to be a member of the 2010 Canadian Olympic team. And I'd finished my undergrad, and I was actually down in California training and doing what we call our off-ice training, so all our strength and conditioning in the off-season. And the league I was supposed to go back and play in folded. So the professional league had folded. And obviously for anyone who's followed women's sports up until pretty much right now, women's sports in the leagues, haven't been very sustainable, and it hasn't been really a great place. Women can't really play professionally unless you were a golfer or a tennis player, but obviously that's changed. So because it folded, I was kind of in a point where I had a momentary pause and just kind of going full steam ahead. And I think just through my journey and being in California, being separate from being the hockey player, everybody knowing me as the hockey player, it made me decide to retire. And so I am in San Diego now. I live in San Diego. So I decided to stay down in California and kind of move on with the next phase of life. But before I had even, made that decision, again, because of being, a women's ice hockey player, even if I was going to be playing professionally, which I had done in the past, you don't make money. So you still have to think about what are you going to do for a career? How are you going to make money? And so I'd already started to think about that, and just helping people and helping athletes had always been something that was kind of underneath the surface. And that's kind of how I made that transition.
So when you were making that transition, I know, because I mean, from my personal training background and stuff, like, one of my clients was a professional boxer, and for her transitioning when she did retire, it was, this huge identity shift, right? Going from I am a professional boxer to I was, and now it's like, what am I? And us having to have a few conversations like, look, you have a successful business and you've had this the whole time you were boxing. Like, you're not just a boxer. That's not your only identity. Did you go through any identity shift, issues when you went from being a pro athlete to, doing what you're doing now?
No, absolutely. I think any athlete generally has some type of transition and shift. And obviously, there are things you can do proactively to make that more minimal and make it not quite as harsh of an adjustment. But I think there's always a little bit there because you put so much time, energy, and effort into this one singular thing. And it's something you're very good at, right? In my 20s, I had excelled to a very high level in one thing, and where most people are just starting maybe the thing that they're going to now excel at. I had already done that in something, so you kind of are making this shift from going from being very, very good at something to not going back to the beginning, and that can sometimes be hard, and just saying, who am I without this sport, and do people still like me if I'm not this athlete and this person who's really good. And it's one of the reasons why I decided to make a life in California, I think initially, at least, because it was a place where people didn't know me as a hockey player, and as you know, California hockey is not really a big thing, so I could just be a person and kind of navigate and develop that part of myself away from the game. But yeah, there's always going to be a little bit of that adjustment.
Awesome. So I want to dive into, talking about now mindset and stuff, and really understanding what mental toughness is and everything. Like, can you define what mental toughness is in your words, and then why is it crucial for success in both sport, but mainly in life?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think that word, it gets thrown around a lot, especially in the world of sports. You got to be more mentally tough, and it's such a big kind of umbrella term. Like, what does that mean? If you tell somebody be more mentally tough, I think that's very hard for somebody then to go do anything with, really. And I think it really is a combination of many things. It's a combination of your attitude, your mindsets, your focus, your habits, literally every single thing that makes you be able to, I guess, quote unquote, be tough in a moment. And I think for me, it's really being more mindful of that toughness, really, not just grind and go hard and burn yourself out and do, obviously doing very difficult physical things can show an element of toughness, but doing meditation is also very tough, and it's a different type of toughness. And I think a lot of people don't think of it from that perspective. They think of, like, I'm going to go do this really hard physical thing and somehow grind my way through it, and almost that can sometimes be easier than sitting there for 5 minutes in stillness. So I think it's really a combination of everything that's going to allow you to have that in a moment when you need it, but it has to be cultivated every single day in every facet of your life.
I love the way you define that, because mental toughness is thrown around so much, especially on social media right now. And it's one of those things where, let's say David Goggins, it's right. You're running this extensive amount just because it's tough, just because it's hard. It's like, that's not always what toughness means. It's not, let's say in ice hockey, you getting hit and getting back up. That's tough. And that's hard. But mental toughness, it goes so much more than that. Like you said, meditating for 5 minutes, I guarantee, like, I've done it, and it's tough to sit there and try to relax your brain, especially being an entrepreneur, and my brain is going even when I'm sleeping. I wake up with a new idea, and it's like, just being able to quiet your mind and everything for 5 minutes, let alone a minute, can be hard. But I think it is so true, because being in the gym industry, I tell people that mental toughness is, showing up on the days that you don't want to show up. I work in the gym. I own a gym, and I don't want to work out every single day. Right. And it's doing the things that you need to do when you don't want to do them. Would you kind of align with that in a sense?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, would be one of the facets of it. I think, as I said, there's so many different facets to it. I think it's really bringing it all together. So yeah, doing the things you don't want to do, right, which to me creates that consistency that is needed. And I think you're right. I think there's the physical element. And I think for most athletes, they're always going to, as you said, have days where they don't want to show up and maybe do practice or do their weight training. But then you also have to think about all the other parts that make you great, whether it's meditating or journaling, or any of those other things that are more subtle, that athletes need to do or people need to do to help them be able to be tough in those moments. Because toughness really comes from, are you really grounded? Are you able to make choices and to be stable in your focus and in your decision making in those really key moments? And have you developed that? Have you trained that? And I think that's, also a very important thing.
So I want to ask you about journaling, because you just mentioned it right now. Now, like meditation, I've done breath work, I've done these other things, and I tried journaling, and I don't think I gave it enough time to make it actually make sense for me. But do you think that it's a crucial role in personal development, or do you think that it's, a case by case scenario? What's your take on journaling?
I think most things are case by case. I think there's no one tool that fits absolutely every single person. I may argue that with meditation. I think meditation is a fantastic tool, but when you look at any of the other tools, it really is what works for you. So I think for a lot of people, journaling can be very, very beneficial. And I think with any tool as well, it also comes down to maybe how do you do it, right? There's obviously I guess the traditional form of journaling where you have a blank page and just kind of throw your thoughts on a page. And I think for some people that works beautifully. And for some people that just doesn't work because they need direction. They don't know, like, well, what do I do? What do I write? Like, I don't understand this. And maybe they just need some prompting questions, some questions that just kind of help make them get a little bit more introspective, think a little bit. And so like that's what I do with my clients. I do have it where there are questions to create more of a formal reflection and give them a little bit of guidance with their introspection. And for most part, I think most of them do like it. But again, for some of them, they really grab a hold of it and they really embrace it and they find that really is extremely valuable for them. And for other people, it's okay, but it's not maybe as big for as it is for other people. So there's no one size fits all. It really is when you come down to developing your mindset and training your mind is really finding the tools that work for you and being very, very consistent with those tools.
No, that does make a lot of sense. Have you heard of like I like the fact that you do questions and like diving into a question and explaining your answer and diving that way. That makes sense to me. And like I would be, more, I think, receiving to that. I think the journaling that I've been told and is the journaling where it's like you talk about your goals in, let's say for 2025, talk about your goals like in the present tense of you achieving them and do it every single day. And it's like, for me, it was like, why? Like, I know I'm literally working at those goals every single day already. Like, why do I have to write it in the present tense? And I don't know if, again, maybe I'm just looking at it the wrong way, or if I'm just, if I was just journaling wrong, I guess maybe that does work for some people. But, sitting there and writing essentially almost like I review it as like standards back in school and you got in trouble and you had to, repeat your standards. I will not do this. I will not do this. And it's like, writing your goals in present tense. Do you think that is beneficial or case by case, or, have you seen anything, or do you do that?
I think it's funny. It again, for me, I feel like it is always case by case because I think there's research that can go either which way. Like there's, for example, there's research that says that telling people your goals is really beneficial and really good. And then there's things out there that says actually no, keeping it to yourself and not telling people is really good. So I think it's one of those things where again, it's very personal. I think again, if you understand, because a big part of mindset is knowing yourself and knowing how you work and how you operate. And then again, finding the things that help to support you and help you to use your strengths to really get you where you want to go. And obviously help you to understand your vulnerabilities and where are the things that maybe there are some gaps and how do you support yourself to help make sure those gaps really don't get in your way. Whether that's getting somebody else to help you or again, just it's not always about you by yourself having to work on this quote unquote weakness, but maybe being able to give yourself the environment that helps make sure that doesn't really interfere with what you're trying to do. So to your point, I was kind of the same way where I didn't, everyone says write down your goals. When I was growing up, I never wrote down my goals. For me, that just didn't seem like it worked for me. I always just knew what I wanted and I could see it. Like I would do more of the mental rehearsal and see it and feel it and embody where I knew I wanted to go. And every day I would then just focus on doing the work that I knew was a part of the steps towards it. But I never sat there and, wrote down I'm going to the Olympics in 2010. Right. But I had that embodiment in me once I knew that was maybe a realistic opportunity for myself.
No, I think and like the part I took away from that too is like what you were just saying is, it's case by case. So, try it out. It may work. It may not work for me. Like just similar to you, like I can visualize it. Like I can see these things and I'm so almost not like, I guess obsessed, but like I am thinking about it day in, day out. So it's like writing on a piece of paper just seemed for me like a waste of time, but I have heard other people saying it works for them. Do you do any like visualization like techniques and stuff with like your clients or even for yourself? Have you done it in the past where you're like, seeing, let's say for like Kobe Bryant, I know he used to talk about, him doing his free throws, but then when he wasn't doing his free throws in practice and before practice, like he was literally watching, like, visualizing him making the shot actually going in and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I do it with my clients. I've done it. I still do it. So I think mental rehearsal, and I like the term mental rehearsal because it's more than when we use the term visualizing, people think you got to see it like a movie in your mind, which again, it's some people do. And some people it's more feeling based. Like that was for me for the longest time. I saw it like vague kind of images, but it was more I could feel things really deeply. I could feel the same, feeling and sensation after, as if I just scored a goal, for example. And I could feel that really greatly. So I like the term, mental rehearsal. So I do use it. I think the pre-performance mental rehearsal is really important. I think most athletes and most people understand that going into a certain event and kind of doing that mental rehearsal. But I have my athletes also do it every day, because I think, one, if you do it for 5 minutes every day, that adds up over time. Again, just building that habit and not just putting it just when you're about to go perform, because again, everything you're doing every day is setting you up to be able to perform in that moment when you want to. But then it also opens the door for different types of mental rehearsal, because most people will do the mental rehearsal of seeing just their ideal performance, which is important, especially right before you're about to go do it. But it's also, mental rehearsal can also be used to see how do you want to respond to maybe something not going according to plan, or how do you want to respond to after you make a, quote unquote mistake or slip in the middle of the game. And you can then do that a little bit away from the actual maybe game or performance. And that also is important, because that's a part of mental preparation. A part of having a good mindset is preparing for distractions or things not going according to plan. And sometimes you can do a little bit of mental rehearsal around that, and around your different action plans and what you want to do in different scenarios. So that opens that door, for that. But, with mental rehearsal, there's so many different ways you can, whether it's seeing the performance, seeing how you want to feel after the performance. I mean, you could sit there the first thing in the morning and kind of just, do a little bit of rehearsal around how do you want to see your day kind of flow, with, again, the idea that just because that's how you've seen it doesn't mean it's exactly going to go that way. It's just saying you're kind of setting that intention, but then you still have to be open and adaptable to how things actually unfold.
No, that's so awesome. I like that terminology flip. Like, I like mental rehearsal better, because visualization, even though I said it, like it is so broad, and there's so many things that can get categorized under that. And mental rehearsal is a lot better terminology. So definitely going to be using that. That's way better. What are some common like mental barriers that not just athletes have, but high performers, entrepreneurs face, and then how do you help them overcome these?
Confidence is a big one. I think a lot of people get surprised by that sometimes if they're not the athlete. I think athletes understand confidence is and even high performers understand it can be one of their mental barriers. And a big part is because for many people and many high performers, confidence is coming from external of themselves. And so it's, how many goals have I got? Did I win? Did I not win? Did I make this team? Did, this happen? Does my coach like me? Does my coach give me lots of playing time? Whatever it might be. And really having to flip that and really drive it from within them. So saying like, yeah, like you scoring goals or getting a certain time or winning something, or your coach now gives you more ice time, whatever it might be, like that's great. That can align with what you already know about yourself, but it shouldn't be the thing that makes or breaks your confidence. Your confidence shouldn't be a roller coaster. It shouldn't be going up and down depending on how things in your external world are going. It should really be steady and consistent if you developed it from within yourself. And so I think that's really a big thing, is just helping people, whether they're high school athletes, as you said, entrepreneurs. I've worked with people in the military. I've worked with professional athletes, and that seems to always be there. That's something we're always working on, because even if somebody has a decent or seemingly decent level of confidence, generally, again, because it's dictated by things outside of themselves, there's always that opportunity for it to then get impacted negatively if something changed in their situation. So we always want to make sure that they're developing it so that it is steady, comes from within them, and that's what they can lean on. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And then just consistency. I think especially with training the mind, I think the consistency sometimes is lacked. People dabble in it, they like it, they do it a little bit, or they do it to the point where now they're seeing success in what they're trying to do, and then they decide, oh, we're good, let's just focus again only on our physical game and we'll be done.
No, that's so true. Make sure you guys took those notes down if you're listening. No, I honestly, I didn't expect the confidence one. That was a huge, perspective change. It does make a lot of sense though, and because you are super confident when things are going right. And then when things don't go right, even if it is an external thing that you had no control over, it can hit your self-confidence a little bit to, your self-belief, and like, man, like I thought I was the rock star that nothing could happen to me, and all of a sudden it does. And then you're like, am I the one? So I wasn't ready for that one. That was a cool little twist on what I thought maybe a common mental barrier would be. Now, sidebar, with athletes, and you can't choose ice hockey because I know you already have a bias towards it. What's your favorite sport athlete to train? Do you have one?
So it's an interesting question. Just favorite sport, that's a totally different question than one to train. It's funny. I have had that question asked before, and I really don't have a favorite sport or athlete based off of their sport. I have a favorite athlete based off of their own mindset and bias towards self-development and self-improvement. I think the ones that really buy into wanting to improve themselves and are curious and are constantly trying to become better internally and within themselves and really buy into my process, or maybe my process, just the process of developing and training your mind. Those are the ones I love to. So whether they're 16 years old or they're 36 years old, professional athlete, whether they're UFC or they're football player or they're tennis player or whatever they might be, to me, that doesn't really matter. I love just having somebody who's really truly engaged in the process.
Okay, I feel like that was a political answer.
It really isn't, because I guess it sounds like a political answer, but I've been doing this now for 15 years, and that's what you start to realize, that it really is, for me in my position, the enjoyment comes from being able to really help somebody and seeing them grow, but that comes from them, right? I'm just here to guide them, and so they have to really truly be invested, and if they're not, then it's really hard for me to guide them. So it really truly is. I mean, I've loved I will say I've loved working with different athletes. I work with a lot of motocross and supercross athletes, and there's one of the reasons I love it, because it's different. It's something that I'm a hockey player, and growing up I played all the other traditional sports, soccer, baseball, basketball, all those different things, right? But I never got on a dirt bike. I've tried it now as an adult, but so to work with athletes for sports that I didn't play or didn't and to learn about it and to see it, and I went to the Supercross race here in San Diego this past weekend. So to see it and to see what they do, I have such just admiration for any athlete. I always have, for what they do, because every sport has their own challenges that you wouldn't think of or don't know. And so it's very cool to learn more about, these different sports. And so I always loved kind of getting the new sports, but now I've pretty much worked with every sport. But that's always been fun.
No, that's awesome. So we'll switch the question to, what is again, besides ice hockey, what is your favorite sport to watch?
Oh, no, that's a good question. I do like watching sports. Currently, what is my favorite sport to watch? It's hard because I like tennis. I've always liked tennis, and I like watching a good tennis match is a lot of fun. I do actually really like watching the supercross and motocross races now, because again, it's something I've got very invested in with the number of clients that I've worked with. Obviously hockey is one sport that I always love to watch. I always like to watch hockey. That's a given. So I'd say if I'm looking at it, definitely a good tennis match or a supercross race, I think or motocross race is really fun. And obviously football playoffs. I do like football playoffs. I think just because there's more on the line and you get to see some really great moments. You get to see some mental skills in action. What do they do under pressure? Because when someone makes a mistake, in a high pressure moment, it's not a physical thing. It's not that they couldn't catch the ball or anything like that. You kind of get to see really truly what's going on between their two ears.
That's awesome. So do you have a favorite hockey team in the NHL?
I don't have a favorite. It's changed since I've worked with players. Now I'm obviously I like and cheer for the players, and they've now moved around and are in different teams. So I'm always kind of seeing what their teams and what they're doing. I grew up though, and because I'm from Toronto, so I did go to the Leaf games, and then my dad's from Montreal, so I also like the Habs. Which for hockey people say you can't do that. You can't like Leafs and Habs because they're huge rivals. But if it comes down to it, usually I will cheer for the Habs if it's Habs versus Leafs. But obviously it'd be great to see either one of them go far and maybe even win, especially the Leafs, since that's never happened in my lifetime. I have got to see Montreal win a Stanley Cup when I was very young. But yeah, one of those two teams is obviously teams I kind of keep a little bit more of an eye on.
No, that's awesome. So I want to, pivot and dive into your book a little bit, right? You wrote a book, Get Into the Zone, and it became a bestseller. Now, from your book, what was the reason that you wanted to write a book? And can you explain, what the book's about a little bit, and we'll, make sure that we put the link in the bio and everything so that people can get it.
Yeah, so that one, I guess it's now been 10 years ago when I wrote that one, so it was a while ago. That one was really at a time, because this was even still, I mean, obviously some social media existed back then, but it wasn't quite the way that it is now. It was, writing a book, and having something when I went and spoke to maybe local youth organizations, and just to kind of get my philosophy and my thoughts, down, and get it out there, and a little bit of a lower price of entry for people maybe getting to know me. That was a big, point to it. And then also just to educate people, because again, even in the last 10 years, mental performance, coaching or mindset coaching in the world of sports has gotten a lot bigger, and much more of a thing people understand and know about. But 10 years ago, even, that was still something, to educate people, to help them understand what it was and what it wasn't, was a big thing. And so that was another big part of writing that book, is just trying to help people to understand what my role was, what I did, and what that looked like, but to make it very beginner based. It's a very small book. I think it's not even like maybe 100 pages. And so it was all designed to say, hey, here's like a beginner's guide to training your mind. Here are some things you maybe want to think about, look at. What does this mean? Where does this play, kind of a part in the whole picture of sports and athletes? And that was really the big thing. And I think, a big part of it, the name, is why I picked the name. People like that name, Get Into the Zone. Everyone's trying to do that. So that was really the reason I did it. And then, I actually wrote a book 2 years ago, another one that was much more in depth. So I always tell people, if you're kind of just beginning, wanting to explore it, wanting to understand this, want maybe a really quick read, like something you can, read within a day or two, or on a plane ride somewhere, Get Into the Zone is a great place. But if you want something a little meatier and a little bit more in depth, and really diving further into your mental game, then The Athlete Within is a great book, which is, you can see it behind me actually, if you're watching this. Then that's a really great book, because it really, as I said, it goes much deeper, and is an evolution from my own experience, and really diving, much deeper into the topic.
So both of those books, guys, will be in the show notes. So if you guys are interested, definitely check that out. Can you explain what the zone is, or, what is the zone?
The zone is it's a term that was coined generally in the world of sports for the flow state. It has a lot of different terms from different avenues of life and different areas of life. And it really, the flow state is the best way to describe it, is for people who have experienced this, really when you get into that place where you are, 100% locked in, and things almost seem effortless in your ability to make decisions. And so for an athlete, like being out there, it's almost like, I won't say you're on autopilot, but you're so in the moment. There's not even a thought about the second before or the second coming up. You're just so immersed in it. Everything seems effortless. Sometimes for some athletes, time seems to almost shift, like things slow down. And so it really is it's a place most athletes are trying to continuously get to, is this kind of flow state where, as the term kind of states, you're in this very flowy place. You're loose but engaged, and everything seems to be coming a lot easier than it usually does.
No, yeah, exactly. And I was gonna say flow state, but then I was like, wait. Earlier I said, visualization, then you had a way better term. So I was like, I'm going to use your word this time.
No, yeah, no, it is the flow state. That is the term coined by the person who kind of, I guess, did the initial research and everything on it, but it's gotten different names and different avenues. The zone is just the one the world of sports seems to use.
No, definitely. So, I mean, you've trained, athletes, but then you also mentioned you train military professionals and stuff. Is there a difference in the approach that you take, or the mindset training you would do with an athlete versus someone that's in the military?
No, because it in one sense, again, same thing with, all the different sports. Every sport needs its own different, I guess, mindset or approach, different depending on the demands of that sport. So it's the same with the military, right? The demands obviously are different than a sport, but my approach in terms of how I approach a client does not change. But obviously you have to adapt to what are their demands, understand what is needed out of them in their performance arena, and then kind of help them be able to perform in that arena. But the framework of how we're going to do that, and the different tools and techniques and stuff, that part doesn't change, because again, same thing, going back to what we said earlier, even if you took two athletes from the same sport, what is going to work for them, what tools they need, what framework they need to be at their best in terms of their mental game and training their mind, could be very, very different. So whether it's within the same sport, or a sport versus military, that for me doesn't change how I approach it.
Oh, that's interesting. It's the reason I was asking this because, like, thinking about it, and it's like, one, it's for athletes, it's like they're in a cage, they're in an ice rink, they're on a basketball court, and then it's like a military professional, it's like they might be on the battlefield, they might be in the back office, commanding troops, and it's like I don't know if that maybe dictated how you had to approach it or like the thought process behind it, but it does make sense because if you just think about their office or war room or the battlefield as an arena, the approach is still the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and for me, like with them, when I've done a lot of the military, a lot of it's a part of they're more focused on helping them with their training, maybe, and that coincides usually with something, physical, or as you said, maybe behind the scenes, like conducting a brief if they're an officer. So it's nothing where we've really sat there and spoke specifically about if they are out there in their actual, real, true arena. It's usually just helping them if they're maybe going through buds as a Navy SEAL or something like that to try and help them, kind of overcome or just become the best version of themselves for that part of the experience. So in one sense, it's not. That's where it becomes a little bit more similar to an athlete. Like obviously when they're doing, a lot of stuff for Navy SEAL training, there's a lot of physical stuff that they have to do. But yeah, at the same time, like I've done a Marine fighter pilot, and again, but it was more specific to their training and helping them just, be their best while they were up there, but nothing to do with actually being over there and actually being in their true arena.
Okay, that does make a lot of sense. Have you found some common traits, across the different athletes and sports that you've trained, military high performers and all that kind of stuff? Is there maybe some common traits that you've noticed amongst the most successful performers that you work with?
Yeah, it probably goes back to when you asked the question of who do I like to work with, the ones that have a really deep desire, like almost a developmental bias, like they want to develop themselves. They have a growth mindset. They have the desire to be introspective, to understand that there's no endpoint really to this journey. That, they may come see me, but for a period of time, but they know that their work is going to, extend beyond our time. And they're really using it to kind of help them as a platform to go there, or they keep coming because they know that they're always wanting to become better. So I think that's really the biggest thing, is the people who understand there is no endpoint. So they're not just dabbling in this. They're really investing in it. And, as soon as they get to a point where they feel like they've got a good thing, there's always something more that they want to develop. So in one sense, the way that most athletes kind of approach their physical game, where they're constantly trying to become better with the technique, right? Like it's a never ending cycle. Like they never get to a point where they think, oh, good. Like if you take like a tennis player, like my forehand is perfect now. Like they're always, you look at the Federers and the Nadals of the world, right? They were always perfecting that part, like until the very end, until they retire. And the greatest athletes also do that with their mindset. They understand that like they're constantly trying to refine it to become better and better.
No, that's perfect. So I want to ask a final question. Now, this question I don't like to give ahead of time because I want the most authentic answer, what first comes to mind, right? This is the Kate Allgood's legacy wall. And on this legacy wall, it could be any lasting message. It could be short, it could be long. And I will preface saying it's not a tombstone, right? So some people give a tombstone answer. I'm like, no, hold on, let me rephrase that. So it's your legacy wall. What would that lasting message be for the up and coming generations, within sport, within just life? What would that message be?
It's a good question. So lasting message would be to train your attention and to focus on the quality of the experience. So why train your attention? Your attention is your most important skill. It basically feeds into everything. So if you can really have great control over your attention, you're going to be able to control your emotions. You're going to be able to have the mindset that you need. You're going to be able to have the thoughts that you need. You're going to be able to take the actions that you need, make the decisions that you need. So your attention is absolutely paramount. And I think it's one of the most important things. And it kind of feeds into, the quality of the experience, where when you look at the most, successful or even happiest people, they focus on and understand that the quality of the experience and the experience itself is enough, and really focusing on making that quality the best it can be. They don't worry about the outcome. They don't worry about what's next. They worry really truly just about the quality of the experience. And that helps them immerse themselves into that flow state. And when you're there, you don't care about what's going to happen. You're enjoying where you currently are.
Okay, you could take your mic and just do a mic drop right there. That's awesome. I love that one. That is That is a first for the Mindset Cafe. Guys, write that one down. If you didn't catch it, rewind it, listen again, and write that down. Where can people find what you got going on? I know I'm going to put the show notes for, the books, but, if people want to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you at?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the best places is the website, which is qpathlete.com. And then that's also my handle on Instagram, which is one of the platforms that I'm probably most active on. I do YouTube videos as well, which is under Quantum Performance. But yeah, those are probably the three best places to find me. But definitely the website will have the most information on myself and have all the books and all the various things that I do.
Awesome. Well, guys, make sure you guys share this episode with a friend. If you have a kid, if you have a friend that's a high performer or, entrepreneur, an athlete, or just needs that, reframing of, their mental toughness, their own perspective, their limiting beliefs, send this to them. Kate has just dropped an episode of knowledge for you guys. So with that, Kate, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and everything you got going on to, give us a little bit of knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Listen to